Good morning. How do you follow that? I'm going to try. Please be patient. So when I was asked to come speak to you today, I was asked to talk about my experience, what it's like to be a mentor, and what that means to our court, and also what the Veterans Treatment Court means to me. To me, the Veterans Treatment Court has allowed me to redefine the labels that were once placed on me. These labels were given to myself. I gave them to myself. They were given to me by family members, friends, and in society in general. When I was 18 years of age, I wanted to join the military like my older brother, but my mom quickly labeled me the college-bound kid and was adamant that I didn't join the military. After that, I decided to do what any good girl from the South would do when your mother says you can't do something. I did the exact opposite. And I moved to Chicago to pursue my career in law enforcement. And I thought that if I can't go in the military, at least law enforcement would work for me. 2 years later, a little thing called 9/11 happened, and it changed our world forever. At that point, I decided I would serve, and as soon as they took a class into boot camp, I joined the Navy in late 2001. Originally, I trained as a Master at Arms, which is the Navy's version of a police officer. I later cross-rated to a gunner's mate. And the first couple years were pretty easy. I was stateside. I served a little bit of time in Spain. But in 2005, I was stationed in New Orleans, and I got to be a part of Hurricane Ike, Ivan, Rita, and Katrina. I was part of a rapid response team there in Algiers. My first day in New Orleans, one of my fellow MAs used his service revolver to end his life. I was only 24 years old when I was in New Orleans. I worked as a part of the rapid response team that did clearings of houses during the day, and at night, we did base security. After 8 months in New Orleans, I figured I was going home. I was told I was getting orders back to Chicago. But I got the phone call that said I had been selected for an IA. I was told to report 2 weeks later, and I would start training to deploy to Iraq. I deployed to Iraq in early 2006. And while in Iraq, I served at both Fort Susi and Camp Bucca, which are both detention facilities. I was assigned to the Charlie compound, which housed our most violent offenders. I returned to the United States in 2007, and I had two knee surgeries to deal with the injuries I had sustained while deployed. I spent the next 2 years focusing on all my physical injuries and neglecting all of my mental or moral injuries. I came home to a Navy that was saying I was no longer fit for active duty. That was more labels to me. I now felt that I was a failure, a disappointment. I was ridden with guilt and disabled. My husband told me that his wife never came home from Iraq. I now was no longer going to be a wife. That's more labels. I again was a failure, a divorcee, and now depressed. If my husband touched me, I cried. If he didn't touch me, I cried. I continued to label myself. I was now a lousy wife. I avoided getting help for a long time, as many of us veterans do. I then sought out help at the VA. I went to the VA, like many of us do, and got my Costco-sized bag of drugs, and I got more labels. I got a handful more of labels. I now had PTSD. I now was an MST survivor. I was depressed. I was anxious. Why do I tell you all this? Because I'm not unlike the participants that go through our court each day. I just happened to pick a coping mechanism that was legal. I chose to bury my trauma, my pain, as being a workaholic. I chose to volunteer for everything possible and avoid any feelings. The belief was if I worked hard enough and stayed busy enough, I wouldn't have to address my feelings. The only difference between myself and the participants in the Veterans Treatment Court is that my coping mechanism didn't lead to a criminal offense. Like myself, our participants come into the court with so many negative labels. They're labeled a criminal, a failure, an abuser, dishonorable, dangerous. Through my hard work and dedication, I was able to redefine the labels that were placed on me. I'm now a mentor, a leader, a role model, an MSW, and a graduate. Thank you. That same hard work takes place every day in our treatment courts across America. Our participants are able to change the labels. They are now labeled as honorable, dedicated mothers and fathers, graduates, successful business owners. And just as we saw earlier with Stephen, we now have amazing mentors to add to that label. That's what our Veterans Treatment Courts do. In the Navy, we have a saying, the chiefs are the backbone of the Navy. I would like to think that our mentors are the backbone of the Veterans Treatment Courts. I had the honor of working with some amazing mentors this week at our mentor boot camp. Our mentors stepped in and served as a positive role model and a battle buddy for our participants as they go through the Veterans Treatment Court. They are a vital part of any successful Veterans Treatment Court. This week, we trained over 30 mentors on the key components of a mentor and their vital role in the Veterans Treatment Court. Please welcome the 2014 graduating class of Mentor Boot Camp.
Thank you, Randy. I lay in bed last night and I was reflecting on the conference and the rich conversations that I've been able to have with Randy, with Steve, and so many others. Reflected on my time as a U.S. Marine and was almost tempted to go down a negative thinking path. And then the reality of what Veterans Treatment Court is hit me like a fresh wind. That to my left is Jack. I had the pleasure of getting to know before this conference. A fellow Marine to my right. And before me, fellow veterans. Surrounded by a cloud of veterans. That is Veterans Treatment Court. Randy is right. You will be the backbone of Veterans Treatment Courts nationwide. Now, please raise your right hands and repeat after me. I am forever conscious of each veteran under my charge. And by example, will inspire him or her to the highest standard possible. I will strive to reintegrate my veteran back into society. I will live by the credo. Leave no veteran behind. And will give them the support only a veteran can give. I will never forget that I am responsible to my fellow veteran. The Veterans Treatment Court program and the law. To my fellow veterans. You're not repeating, I'm just stating this. The class of 2014 Mentor Boot Camp, remember, you will be the backbones of Veterans Treatment Courts nationwide. You are dismissed.
Give it up.